All right, so again, you all should be on book 11. That begins on page 42 of your document, and you should have your book 11 questions open in another panel. Mine will look a little bit different than yours, so just follow along with me as we go. We've already looked at question 1 and answered, what does the word assuage mean? To calm, and we see that right here in the text. Okay, just a little bit of backstory. Before we got to book 11, Odysseus and his men had gone where? Circe's lair. And as the men were there, Circe did what? She turned the men into pigs. And so Odysseus had to go back and save them. Okay? So she agrees to let the men go, but says, once you leave, you have to go where? To the land of the dead. And so that's where we are here. So Odysseus and his crew set out for the land of the dead, and they arrive and find the place to which Circe has directed them. Okay. Then I addressed the blurred and breathless dead, vowing to slaughter my best heifer for them before she calved at home in Ithaca, and burn the choice bits on the altar fire. As for Tiresias, I swore to sacrifice a black lamb, handsomest of all our flock. So he's vowing to sacrifice a cow and a lamb. Thus, to assuage the nations of the dead, I pledged these rites, then slashed the lamb and ewe, letting their black blood stream into the well pit. Okay, so which phrase from lines of the text best help the reader understand the meaning of the word assuage? And number 2. Is it, I address the blurred and breathless dead, burn the choice bits on the blood fire, letting their black blood steam, slash the lamb and the ewe, or I swore to sacrifice, I pledge these rites? And pay attention to where assuage is in the text. That's what he's going to do to calm them eventually. But how does he begin? Okay. He addressed the dead. So he's speaking to them, and in speaking to them, he's going to calm them or assuage them. Okay. Beginning on line 10. Now the souls gathered, stirring out of Erebus, brides and young men, and men grown old in pain, and tender girls whose hearts were new to grief. Many were there too, torn by brazen lance head, battle slain, bearing still their bloody gear. From every side they came and sought the pit with rustling cries, and I grew sick with fear. But presently I gave command to my officers to flay those sheep, the bronze cut down, and make burnt offerings of flesh to the gods below, to sovereign death, to pale Persephone. All right, so in lines 17 through 20, Odysseus makes a sacrifice to Persephone. In the Greek myth, Hades has kidnapped Persephone and he forces her to live with him for 6 months out of every year. Based on this background information, what can we infer about Hades? He has no care for others, but only thinks of himself. He knew that Persephone would love him eventually. He keeps Persephone to protect her from those who would harm her, or he loves Persephone only when she resides with him. A, very good. He has no care for others but himself. Okay. Starting at line 21. Well, no, let's go ahead and answer number 4. So based on our answer to part A, which character trait best relates to Hades? Selfish. Very good. Okay. We're going to read a little bit further. Meanwhile, I crouched with my drawn sword to keep the surging phantoms from the bloody pit till I should know the presence of Tiresias. So in the lines that we've read up to this point, how is Odysseus best characterized? As a coward, arrogant, a brave leader, or sick with grief? A brave leader. And which of those lines that we've read already insinuate that? I gave command to my officers. Very good. All right, so here we're about to read a little bit about Elpenor. So one shade or ghost came first, Elpenor of our company. What does that mean, of our company? Yeah, he came from our group. He was one of our soldiers. So one ghost, Elpenor, came first of our company, who lay unburied still on the wide earth as we had left him. So that means they didn't have a chance to bury him. They had to leave him unburied and dead. However, they see him now dead in Circe's hall, untouched, unmourned, when other cares compelled us. Again, they had to handle other things instead of going ahead and burying him. Now, all there and called this, Elpenor? How could you journey to the western gloom swifter of foot than I in the black lugger? Elpenor sighed and answered, Son of great Laertes, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, bad luck shadowed me, and no kindly power. Ignoble death I drank with so much wine. Oops, screen away. I slept on Circe's roof, then could not see the long, steep, backward ladder coming down and fell that height. My neck bone buckled under, snapped, and my spirit found this well of dark. So, what can we infer about Elpenor's death? Was he attacked by enemies? Did his drunken state lead to his death? Was he poisoned by Circe? Or was his death not an accident but planned? Which one? No. Listen to this. Ignoble death I drank with so much wine. B. Elpenor's drunken state led to his death. And your answer choices may be in a little bit of a different order than mine. That's okay. Originally, this was meant to be a quiz, so now it's just text analysis. Okay, and which quotation lets us know that his drunken state led to his death? D, yes. Bad luck shadowed me and no kindly power, if noble death I drank with so much wine. Okay, so now in the text, Odysseus prepares to respond to Elpenor. Now hear the grace I pray for, in the name of those back in the world not here, your wife and father, he who gave you bread in childhood, and your own child, your only son Telemachus, long ago left home. So Elpenor is telling Odysseus that all his family has left Ithaca, or was left behind at Ithaca when he went off to war so many years ago. When you make sail and put these lodgings of dim death behind, you will moor ship, I know, upon Ie Island. There, O my lord, remember me, I pray. Do not abandon me unwept, unburied, to tempt the gods' wrath while you sail for home, but fire my corpse. And that means to hold a funeral for him. And all the gear I had, and build a cairn for me above the breakers, an unknown sailor's mark for men to come. Heap up the mound there and implant upon it the oar I pulled in life with my companions. So what is an oar? A paddle. So that's what they use to paddle their boats. So then Odysseus ceased and replied, "Unhappy spirit, I promise you the barrow and the burial." So we conversed, and grimly at a distance, with my long sword between, guarding the blood, while the faint image of the lad spoke on. Okay, so let's pause here for a second. What is it that Elpenor is asking Odysseus to do? To give him a proper burial, to hold a funeral for him, and bury him properly. However, if I'm telling this right, Elpenor's corpse has been left behind, I believe at Circe's lair. So that means that Odysseus and his men are going to have to do what? They're going to have to go back to Circe's lair. Okay, so how do Odysseus's interactions with Elpenor give the reader insight into Odysseus's character? Which of these describes Odysseus? Yes. These interactions prove that Odysseus cares for Elpenor even in Elpenor's death. And which of these quotes help us to realize that? Unhappy spirit, I promise you the barrow and the burial. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to go a little bit further. Now came the soul of Anticlea, dead, my mother, daughter of Autolycus, dead now, though living still when I took ship for holy Troy. So he's seeing his mother here in the underworld. She was alive whenever he left for Troy. So if she's there now, what does that mean? She's dead. He's seeing her spirit now in the underworld. Seeing this ghost, I grieved, but held her off through pang on pang of tears, till I should know the presence of Tiresias. Soon from the dark, that prince of Thebes, again Tiresias, came forward, bearing a golden staff, and he addressed me. Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of land, ways and seaways, why leave the blazing sun, O man of woe, to see the cold dead in the joyless region? So why leave the earth to come down to the underworld? Stand clear, put up your sword. Let me but taste of blood, I shall speak true. At this I stepped aside, and in the scabbard let my long sword ring home to the pommel silver. As he bent down to the somber blood, then spoke the prince of those with gift of speech. Okay, so I'm going to hold off on sharing this speech that Tiresias gave, and we're going to look at question 11. Both Tiresias and Elpenor describe Odysseus with epithets. Based on their interactions, what can we infer about Odysseus? That he's an exceptional navigator, especially at sea, that he's a strong soldier and can destroy any man at will, that he's emotionally weak, especially when it comes to facing the dead, or that Odysseus is a poor battle fighter against the undead souls in Hades. No, he's pretty strong. Like he's talking to all these dead people, and even promising Elpenor that he'll bury him. He's even coming into he's coming into contact with people he knew in life. So that's taking a lot of strength. So it can't be C. Huh? So not D, because he's not trying to fight these undead souls. He's speaking with them. He's talking to them. So it's either going to be B or A. And when we're talking about the oars and where did it go? Master mariner, it's more so alluding to the fact that he's an exceptional navigator, because here it says he can destroy any man at will. So that part's not true. He is an exceptional soldier. He is an exceptional navigator, but the destroying any man at will is false. So we have to go with A. And which set of epithets allude to the fact that he's an exceptional navigator, especially at sea? Okay, good. Master Mariner. So that's number 2. So we know that number 2 is going to be part of our answer. So that means it can either be 2 and 3 or 1, 2, and 3. Does O Man of Woe point to the fact that he's a master mariner? I mean that he's an exceptional navigator? No, it's 2 and 3. Very good. Okay, so you read book 9 in your previous cold read, and it says, let me see here. You know what? Before we go to this question, I'm going to read what Tiresias says. So if you come down to line 78, starting with Great Captain, that's where I'm going to begin. Great Captain, a fair wind and the honey lights of home are all you seek, but anguish lies ahead. The God who thunders on the land prepares it, not to be shaken from your track, implacable. And ransom for the sun whose eye you blinded. One narrow strait may take you through his blows, denial of yourself, restraint of shipmates. So that means deny yourself, control your shipmates. When you make landfall on Thrinacia first and quit the violet sea, dark on the land, you'll find the grazing herds of Helios, by whom all things are seen, all speech is known. So remember, Helios is the sun god, okay? And we're remembering back to what we know happened there. Avoid those kind. Hold fast to your intent. What is his intent? To return to Ithaca. That's his intent the whole time. And hard seafaring brings you all to Ithaca. But if you raid the beeves, or if you raid his cattle, I see destruction for ship and crew. Though you survive alone, bereft or without all companions, lost for years, under strange sail shall you come home to find your own house filled with trouble, insolent men eating your livestock as they court or sleep with your lady. Aye, you shall make those men atone in blood, or you'll kill them. But after you've dealt out death in open combat or by stealth to all the suitors, go overland on foot and take an oar, until one day you come where men have lived with meat unsalted, never known the sea, nor seen sea-going ships with crimson bows and oars that fledge light holes for dipping flight. The spot will soon be plain to you, and I can tell you how. Some passerby will say, what winnowing fan is that upon your shoulder? And make fair a great buck boar, turn back and get out pure hecatombs at home. To all wide heaven's lords, the undying gods, to each in order. Then a sea-born death, which means you'll die at sea, soft as this hand of mist will come upon you when you're wearied out with rich old age. So you'll die at sea when you're old. Your country folk and blessed peace around you, and all this shall be just as I foretell. So based on what we just read there and details from book 9, what can we predict is going to happen to Odysseus's men? They'll survive all future trials. They'll help Odysseus get back home, but they'll stay in the land of the dead. The men will die, and Odysseus will be the only one to return to Ithaca, or the men will avoid all traps in the near future, but the ship will be destroyed. The men are going to die. And why did they end up dying? What did they do? They feasted on Helios' cows. But which helps us to know that the men are going to die and Odysseus will be the only one to return home? Yep. But if you raid the beeves, I see destruction for crew. Though you survive alone, bereft of all companions, lost for years under strange sail, shall you come home. So Homer describes Tiresias as the prince of those with gift of speech. That's an epithet describing him. What can we infer Homer means about Tiresias? What is the gift that he possesses? To speak in different languages, to predict the future, to talk in front of large audiences, or to only speak to loyalty? He can predict the future. And which of these quotes tell us that? Nope. And all this shall be just as I foretell, meaning he can tell the future. So his ability to tell the future illustrates what archetypal character hero trait? Supernatural help, unusual birth, special weapon, or suffering an unhealable wound? Supernatural help. And which quote best supports that answer? Which of these is telling that or is showing that he's able to tell the future? Mm-mm. When you're wearing out with rich old age, because he's telling Odysseus that once he's old, that's when he'll finally die at sea. So the text goes on to say Odysseus speaks to the shade of his mother, or the ghost of his mother, and she tells him that Penelope, his wife, and Telemachus, his son, are still grieving for him, and that his father Laertes has moved to the country where he too still mourns his son. Odysseus' mother explains that she died from a broken heart. Odysseus also speaks with the spirits of many great ladies and men who have died, as well as those who were being punished for their earthly sins. Filled with horror, Odysseus and his crew set sail. All right. Yes, please go ahead and submit.